In the news as well on this Monday morning, the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. It is into its second day, and you're looking here at live images of Jabalia, a city in the north of Gaza. Palestinians making their way home through a sea of rubble. Around 90% of Gaza's some 2 million people have been displaced during the war. Aid is also now flowing into the region. And as this morning, Israel released 90 Palestinian prisoners in exchange for the release of the 3 Israeli hostages who were freed yesterday. Chris Brown has been reporting on all of that. He leads our CBC News team in Israel and is live in Jerusalem this morning. Chris, so much to talk about since Friday, but good to see you again this morning. The release of the prisoners, we got the number this morning, 90. Tell us about them and their homecoming.
Well, this was a very key part of this whole effort to wind down the war in Gaza. Hamas wanted a number of detainees freed, over 700 eventually, along with 1,000 people that the Israeli armed forces picked up in Gaza as well. And the scenes you saw last night after the first group, 90 people, almost all women, were released from Offer prison. Now, this release happened quite late. We were expecting it much earlier, almost around the same time the Israeli hostages were released, but that didn't happen. It took until almost 2, 3 in the morning, and yet, if you look at pictures of the West Bank, there were still hundreds and hundreds of people who came out to welcome everyone who had been held in Offer prison. The Israelis used the word prisoner to describe these people, but the better word is probably detainee, because in this case, almost everyone who was in there had not actually been convicted of a crime, much less even charged with a crime. In later releases, we're going to see more people convicted of serious crimes, murder, conspiracy to kill Israelis. Some of these charges go back, some of these convictions go back 30 years, but that's not what we saw last night. So obviously, this is very important because it shows momentum that both sides are intent on going forward and following the provisions of this ceasefire. Here in Israel, these detainee exchanges are very controversial, fill a lot of people with anxiety because they remember that the mastermind of the October 7th attacks on Israel, Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, that is how he was returned to Gaza in a previous exchange, Heather.
Chris, I'd love your perspective on the big story we're watching today, which is, of course, Donald Trump's inauguration. What will a second Trump presidency mean, not just for the war, the ceasefire now, but also for relations in the Middle East and the tensions broadly?
You know, it seems like almost everyone in this neighborhood is trying to give Trump some of the credit for pushing this ceasefire across the line. I was even listening to interviews with Hamas officials who said much the same thing. And there was a lot of interpretations about what that famous phrase he used, hell to pay, would mean. Most people thought it meant directly at hell to pay for Hamas, but there may also have been some implications for Israel as well. When you look at Trump's incoming ambassador here, Mike Huckabee, he is seen as a very strong Zionist, a very strong friend of Israel. He doesn't even use words like occupied West Bank. He uses words like Judea and Samaria. So people are wondering, what does that mean for the trade-off that Trump may have offered to get this deal done? Does it mean possibly Israeli annexation of the West Bank and American recognition of that? Others aren't so sure. They wonder perhaps Trump's got in mind something bigger, perhaps to coerce, push the Saudis and the Israelis into some kind of final recognition agreement, and this ceasefire is building on that. So, and the other big question, of course, is Iran. Is Trump going to help Israel in a possible attack on Iran? That's going to be something that's going to be hotly debated, has been hotly debated within the Biden administration. I think very soon after Trump taking office, we'll start to get some answers to these important questions, Heather.
Okay. Chris, thank you very much. Really appreciate that as we bring you into the coverage today. Chris Brown out of Jerusalem.